So example is about what to do if you have data that have both trend and seasonality. Trend and seasonality. So here, what is the data here? Data consists of TV set sales. How many units of TV, how many sets have been sold in thousands of units for a particular manufacturer for the past 4 years. And TV sales varies from season to season. You would expect, like in the cold month, you would expect to see more TV set sales. In the warmer month, maybe people are more concerned with outside activities, so maybe they don't buy many TVs. And what else do we have? I mean, of course, a big consideration is the holidays. Christmas, holidays, where people give gifts. There's lots of sales, so people give gifts to other people and also to themselves. So it's like there's this big shopping frenzy that goes on during the winter months. So that should also always be taken into account when we try to forecast the sale. Okay, so how do we know that the data are trend or seasonality? The simplest thing is to graph the data, make a chart of the data. So here's the data. Let's see what this is about. So you see here 4 years of data, and you have these units or thousands of units here, and you have the 4 quarters, for each year. So first, let's try plotting this data. Let's try plotting this. So let's see. We could go. I think the line chart will be enough. Line chart. Just select this part. Maybe. Oops. Let me try again. Just select. Maybe start with a Y, just so we have some kind of label. So Y, and then select the yellow highlighted cells with the data. And then I'm going to go insert. Then this little thing here is just supposed to be line chart. And I'm going to go with this one. Okay, so you could see here the picture of your data. Okay, so you could see in general the trend is increasing, and that's good. And also you could see there's these little cycles during the year. So let's see what happens. First you got first quarter, and then it goes down, second quarter, and then up, and then up. Okay, and then down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up. So it's always like down, down, up, up, for each year. So you could see there's some kind of seasonal pattern going on here. So you want to take into account both the trend and this kind of seasonal pattern into account as you extrapolate your data into the future. So as you try to make forecasts. So here now the goal is to make quarterly forecasts for year 5. So in the year 5, which is supposed to be the future year, okay, what are these 4 values? What are the estimates of the sales for these 4 quarters? Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. And there is a summary of this. So we're going to use a regression. We're going to use the multiple regression we already learned before. So we already know how to use regression to do the trend. Okay, so we use the intercept and the slope functions to do a trend projection. But that one only had one independent variable. So we said, okay, sales depends on the time period. So time period was the independent variable, and the sales was the dependent variable. In this case, this is going to require multiple regression because besides the time period, which tells you the trend, there is also the quarter. What quarter am I in? So what quarter you're in depends. Well, that's going to influence your sales. If you're in the peak demand quarter, like in the holiday season, that is if you're like here, quarter 4, like quarter four, then your sales will be higher than usual. If you're in the quarter 2, like here, then your sales will be lower than usual. So that has to be taken into account. To do that, we need more variables, not just the time period variable in our regression. Okay. Okay. So it says here. Now, so quarter would be a variable, like which quarter you're in, 1, 2, 3, or 4. The problem is that the quarter is really a categorical variable. Quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, these are numbers. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, but these don't actually represent some meaningful quantity. You're not actually measuring anything. It's kind of like you're saying, okay, if you're a man you are gender number 1. If you are a woman, then you're gender number 2. You're just assigning numbers. You're just assigning numbers to something that's not really a meaningful quantity. So you don't want to just use a quarter number as a kind of variable in a regression. In regression, you need to all the variables have to be quantitative. They have to represent some amount, some meaningful number. Okay, like time period is meaningful. It's years, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, and those numbers have some meaning. Okay, but quarters 1, 2, 3, 4 during the season, you could have called it something else. You could have said, well, the spring quarter, fall quarter, winter quarter. So you could just call it like 4 seasons. And so by calling quarters 1, 2, 3, 4, we are not actually saying these numbers represent some meaningful quantities, but these are just codes for these categories, like 4 seasons. Okay. So when you have a categorical variable that doesn't really represent some real quantity, what you could do is, to use regression, you could kind of translate that into some other variables that are quantitative. Okay, so this is where these dummy variables come in. So you're going to make up these other variables that are quantitative that we could use in regression. Okay, so how it works is, so in place of the quarter number 1, 2, 3, 4, we're going to have, for each quarter, we're going to have a variable. So for quarter 1, we're going to say, okay, here's a variable, let's say Q1. And it's going to be either 1 or 0. So if I'm in quarter 1, then the value of this variable Q1 would be 1. Now if I'm in quarter 2, then I'm going to have another variable, Q2, representing quarter 2. So I'm going to say Q2 is equal to 1. And so this is kind of how it's going to work. So here are 3 new variables. 3 new variables. These are, again, called dummy variables because they're just kind of fake variables that we're making up. So quarter 1, okay, variable is going to be 1 if you are in the quarter 1. And otherwise it's 0. And quarter 2, that's another variable. Okay, it's going to be 1 if you are in quarter 2, otherwise 0. Or quarter 3, again, 1 or 0, depending on whether you're in quarter 3. So we are going to make up these 3 new variables. And wait, what about quarter 4? Well, quarter 4, we're going to represent it by setting all these variables equal to 0. So if we're going to say if quarter 1, 2, 3, all these variables are equal to 0, that means I am in quarter 4. So you just need a way to represent, by using these variables, which quarter you're in. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to set up these 3. We set up these 3 columns for these 3 variables, and then we say, okay, I'm in quarter 1. That means Q1 is 1, Q2 is 0, Q3 is 0. If I'm in quarter 2, so then Q2 is 1, and the other variables are equal to 0. Quarter 3, I set Q3 equal to 1, and the others are equal to 0. And Q4, quarter 4, that means all the variables are Q1, Q2, Q3, those are all equal to 0. So which means by default, now I'm in quarter 4. So quarter 4 is kind of like a baseline category. If all the variables are equal to 0, that means automatically we're in quarter 4. So this is how we're going to represent the data. Then we have the time variable, of course, as before. So what we have is we're going to have these 4 variables that help us predict the sales. So Q1, Q2, Q3, and then the time period. That just runs from 1 through, I think 1 through 16, from 1 through 16. Okay, so we set up these variables. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 independent variables. There are X variables that will help us predict the sales. So basically that's an overview of how this is going to work. So what we do is we're going to go here and then say, let's see, that's year 1, quarter 1. So I just assign 1. So I just enter 1 here, and then I move to the next cell, put 0, and then 0. Okay, so that's it, 1, 0, 0. Now I move to the second row, and that is in quarter 2. So I have 0 here, and then 1 for quarter 2, then 0. then quarter 3, that means quarter Q3 will be equal to 1, the others will be 0. Okay, and quarter 4, everybody is 0. So Q1, Q2, Q3, they're all 0. Okay, now the time period is just going to go from 1 through 16. So I'm just going to put 1, 2, and then just copy it down. So I just select both so I could copy it down. And to here. Okay, so I have 1 through 16. Okay, and now this pattern is going to repeat every year. And so this part is going to repeat every year because each year you have 4 quarters. So you could just copy this and paste it onto other years. So I just select this and then copy, go to the first part of the second year and paste it. I just Control V to paste. And go here, Control V to paste, and then last one, and Control V to paste. So now I have defined these 3 variables, these 3 columns. Now what we're going to do is we want to get a equation in this kind of format. Okay, so I want to get something like this. I want a multiple regression equation. Here's my forecast I want to come up with for year 5. For year 5, quarter 1 to quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. And here is going to be my intercept. I'll call it B sub 0. And here's a coefficient for quarter 1, coefficient for quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4. So what we need is these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values, these 5 coefficients, actually 1 intercept and 4 coefficients. So that's where we could use that Linus function we learned about before. And once we do that, we're going to get the kind of equation like this. Now we just have to plug in numbers to make forecasts. Okay, so let's see how we would use this. Once we get the equations, once we get this equation, you could say, okay, now I want to make a forecast. A forecast for year 5, let's say the first quarter. So here, this part will now be equal to 1. And quarter 2, the other quarters will be equal to 0 if you're in quarter 1. Now T will be, well, year 5, quarter 1, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. T goes from 1 to 4, 5 to 8, and so forth, 12, 16. And so for here, it's going to be 17, 18, 19, 20, right? So time period will be like that for these years. So it starts with the 17 here. So T is 17. 4 years past times 4 quarters is 16, and then you add 1 to it. So it's 17. So you plug in 17 here. Okay, and then if you just work this out, you have 6.069 minus 1.363 times 1. So that's over here. And then the others are equal, these 2 terms are equal to 0, because anything multiplied by 0 is 0. So that's here. Okay, and then 17, you plug it into here, times 0.146, as you see here. Okay, so 600, and then minus 1.363, and then 0, 0, plus this value, which is 2.482. And that gives us 7.188. So that's how we would make the prediction. Okay, so now let's go ahead and actually calculate, come up with this equation. Okay, so we're here. So we want to eventually put the coefficients here to make the forecast. I set it up just here, just to remember that. To help us remember that the Linus function will give you the coefficients in a reverse order. Right? It goes from B4, B3, B2, B1, B0. I put the headings here to remind me and to remind you. Okay, so remember what we do is you will highlight. Okay, first highlight the 5 cells that will receive the coefficients. Okay, then we type the function. Okay, line st T. And it's nice that it reminds you what to do. It says first you put in the Y's and then the X's. So Y column and then the X columns. So I'm going to go to Y column, which is whatever you're trying to forecast. So I'm going to go to sales. So just the values, just the yellow part, the yellow cells. Okay, go to sales. Okay, and then comma, and now I got to put in the X values. So X values are the other variables, the variables we're using to help predict. Okay, so that means 1, 2, 3, 4, these 4 columns. Quarter 1 to 3, and then time period. So down to 16. So D11 through G26. Okay, then you close the parentheses. Now what is the important thing you need to remember? Right, Control Shift Enter, right? Don't enter, right? Don't just enter. So you gotta hold down Control button, the Shift button, and then hit Enter. So Control, Shift, and then Enter, and then we're fill in all the 5 cells. If I just hit Enter, it'll just give me one number in the first cell.